or Thursday, right? The full interview, but they're
Yeah.
releasing. I mean, they're milking the hell out of this, and I mean, I know I was listening to Goldbridge, who was complaining about how they're dragging this out, this disrespectful to Manchester United fans. Same guy that will announce that he has an announcement to make next Wednesday, and he'll repeat it like 85 times during the 10 days leading up to it. So it was like it's just like disrespectful, like stringing people
Yeah.
along. It's how media works. I think they're gonna milk the hell out of this headlines, and there's going to be a lot coming out. Part of it's, and I think this is the part that tears United fans a little bit, because obviously he's a legend of the club, and some of the stuff he says, they want somebody to be saying it, such as this one right here, saying Cristiano Ronaldo says Glazers don't care about Manchester United. So I know you've been. Good morning, Alan. Alan's with us as always. I know you've been itching to talk about Ronaldo, so I'll let you have your say about this interview, because this kind of seals the deal. I think he wants to make sure that he's not going to be there in spring.
Oh yeah, this is 100% uh him just throwing a grenade into the entirety of it and just not telling United how long ago we pulled the pin. It's it's something where there's parts of it where you look at and you really like feel for the guy, like the whole situation with his daughter and how there was like a disconnect and a lack of empathy from their front on that. I've 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 seen that in real life. I've seen that in
Yep.
sports, and there's teams that handle it well, and there's teams that handle it poorly. There are players that handle it well, and there are players that handle it poorly. From what he's saying, he communicated it to them and went through the proper channels to make sure that yes, he was going to miss parts of the preseason tour. That's not great for United commercially, but as an organization, you should at least go like, hey, this is something that he's dealing with. It's very important. Yeah,
Yeah, the big picture.
and saying very important. Oh, already feels like I'm downplaying it, but it's one of those things like familially, like the what you do that comes second to a situation like that.
Yeah, I mean,
But in that,
like you said, we've
yeah,
been in real life situations where, yeah, it sucks. Like, somebody has a situation going, it sucks as, like I've been in management where you get phone calls from people who are, you were maybe relying on and, or an important time, and one thing comes to another. But I think, yeah, like you're saying, how you react then pays off in the long run. I mean, if you're like, well, that sucks. You think it sucks for you? I mean, look at the guy's story. Like it's nothing how much it
yeah.
sucks to you comparingly. So, and how you react to that, if you handle that well, and you're gonna take the loss either way. Like Ronaldo's not gonna be there, or your guy is not coming in, whatever the situation is. So you might as well make the most of it for the long run and show that you have empathy and say, you know what, man, you go take care of you. Whenever you're ready, come on in. But doesn't sound like that's what they did.
No, and that's in that. I'm having a feeling that's why they kind of released that as the first little snippet of it, because everything from there is just him trying to get fired. It's like him going into the proverbial Manchester United office and like just flopping his cock on the copy machine and just sending and just posting it to every single person in the building. Like,
It's that episode of Costanzo on Seinfeld trying to get fired from the Yankees.
imagine if George Costanza's route to get fired was doing a interview with Piers Morgan and coming off more unlikable than Piers Morgan. I don't know how that's like there's probably like five people in the world that can do that wholeheartedly, go in an interview with that guy and come out looking worse. It's a masterpiece in its own right for that, and people that want to like call him the goat of all time. Look at this. This is goat stuff. Not many people can come out of an interview with Piers Morgan looking worse than him as a human being, but here we are.
Yeah, it's kind of like an interesting ordeal. I mean, I can't imagine. we were talking, I think, in the pod yesterday. It was be like uh, almost like Steven Gerrard coming back and having this kind of a drama afterwards, like Klopp not playing him or something like that. But
Yeah.
it's it's kind of really hard to relate to being a United fan in this situation, because I really have not had this where you get such a big legend. First of all, come back after so long and then have this kind of like a drama. And I guess he should have seen it coming. Doesn't sound like Ferguson is his favorite person anymore, since he's the one who said you don't want to go to City. And we know the only reason United got him was because they didn't want him to go to City. And he's talking about like people, there were people in the club who didn't want him in the first place, and I'm sure those were the people are saying, like, why are we getting this guy? Like, this is not what we need, or this is unnecessary
Yeah.
money. We shouldn't do this probably just because City is going to get him otherwise. So I can see why that would happen. And yeah, it's ugly, but it's good to watch from far away and be like, what the hell is going on? And I think it's going to get one thing that has gone for Ten Hag is the fact that they have gotten decent results on the pitch overall. And like even this last game, squeezing that 3 point right before this is a
Yeah.
huge thing, because the story would be received a lot differently, I think, if they were not doing well, or if like these games where they got the 3 points, they didn't get those 3 points. I think the story would be taken totally differently now that there's some type of positive vibe around the team, and like Ten Hag. I think this is approached differently. I mean, like I say, if a couple of poor results, they lose to Fulham or they don't come back against Villa, I think it's like a totally different situation. Owners of
Mhm.
England Wags World Cup cruise ship are being investigated for slave labor after staff received less than £100 a month working on their slavish 1 billion. I mean, the thing is,
I guess they're trying to fit in with the Qatari government, I
yeah, I
guess.
mean, just get ready for it, like it's I mean, that's the thing. It's just,
Taking when in Rome way too far.
I mean, the when I was reading a lot of stuff about like the Qatar World Cup and like some of the situations why they were considering it slavery and stuff like that, and like I mean, some of those things that they were expecting people to do, they were actually forcing people to do, is yeah, pretty disgusting to kind of watch overall. But as we talked about on the podcast, I know if you were able to catch it last night, but the 6 weeks of no sex is probably like the biggest talking point after discussing the World Cup for a while. I think that was the biggest talking point that
They
came out of it.
they just gotta set up like one of those little Las Vegas world's smallest chapels at the at customs, and you just come in, and if you're not married, you just get married as you go in, and then you can just smash guts the
They
entire
have
tournament. Have
like
fun.
lines, like decal arrows on the ground, like
Yeah.
walk this way, get married to the
Have a
bedroom. It's
have a
just
nice little Qatari Elvis there, and
so in
just
terms
do it
of
all.
headlines, I don't know if you saw anything else that caught your eye. Honestly, it's a bunch of, like I say, vanilla World Cup
Yeah.
stories. With the rosters out, we'll see what happens. Let's
There was a
just hope the
couple
game.
injuries, but there were no like prominent figures that were kind of wiped out and taken off teams. But that was something that we talked about when they were starting to release those rosters early. We go, there's still a week to play. And yeah, I think maybe there's like 6 or 7 guys that have had to be replaced across the 32 teams, but no
It
like
wasn't
big
as
names.
bad as we thought, but at the same time,
Yeah.
we were talking about this yesterday as well. It felt like some of the teams almost played like, "Hey, man, we got a World Cup coming up.
Oh yeah.
Let's take it
Yeah.
easy,"
It was
kind of a
very
deal.
evident.
Okay, so we'll spend rest of the week a portion every morning, kind of like taking a look at it group by group, and like start our predictions. And I know Matish was working on it yesterday evening, but we should be later on today or latest tomorrow, kind of release our American Scouser World Cup bracket pool prediction game kind of a ordeal. Whatever Polish Prince is setting up for us is basically what we're going to release. But it should be interesting. It will make it one more area where we can be way off and stuff like that. So,
Oh, of course.
um, Group A. So the home team obviously is usually the kind of like the easiest group they get, because obviously they become a number one seed automatically. which kind of like throws everything off. This group though is kind of interesting, and I think it will be competitive. It's Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal with Mane and his witch doctor, and Netherlands. So what do you think of it? And give me your final like lineup of the four over here.
So I feel there's with all these groups, there's only a couple that are kind of like slam dunks. There's two teams going through and two teams going home. I A lot of people want to say that this one's one of them, where like Netherlands is going to win, Senegal is going to come in second, and Ecuador and Qatar are going to fight to see who comes in last. I don't necessarily think that. I think
Hmm.
Ecuador could really give a couple of these teams a run for their money. They got a lot of guys that are getting a lot of experience in big leagues. That you just look at like the Brighton contingent. They have three guys that get big minutes for Brighton, and Brighton is having a fairly good season. So I would say that translates to a lot for Ecuador. We'll just rule out the hosts. Everybody's like always, oh, the hosts always have a good chance to advance. Let's just kill that narrative right now. Like, I don't think
Damn,
Qatar.
the people of Qatar hate you.
I well, yeah, get on the bus. That I think if Qatar gets more than a point out of this group, it's something that they should see as a victory. And yeah,
Honestly, I think so. You're going Netherlands, Ecuador, Senegal, Qatar.
I I want to pick Ecuador just because I know everybody else is going to pick Netherlands, and you always need those differentials in brackets and stuff. But if I had a gun to my head, I'd probably go Netherlands, Senegal. But I think Ecuador is not going to get like blown out like a lot of people think they are, just because they don't recognize the names and they're like, oh, Ecuador, they were the team that almost got kicked out of the tournament for the illegal player, whole that thing. I'm like, they're better than that.
Yeah, I think I will go with the standard issue of Netherlands, Senegal, Ecuador, and then Qatar as the fourth in this group. And I think, if you wanted a surprise, I can see Senegal winning this group, is what I would go with it. Because I don't know, like watching them, there's so much freaking talent on that team. But the teams from, and I talk to like people who are from, like Nigeria and stuff like that. And like we've talked about, because I used to have, like used to work with a lot of people from Africa in the city, who were originally from like Senegal and Nigeria and stuff like that. And we used to talk. One of the few people you can talk to soccer in the whole store, because nobody else like he's like, hey man, let's talk soccer. It would be like, like you're walking like, did you see the goal last night and stuff?
Yeah,
And like always wondered why there's so much talent in these teams. When you look at them, everybody is playing on a top team and stuff like that. And it's always a lot of like a political stuff and all that kind of, things happening in the background, the, bonuses, blah, blah, blah. There's so much drama that goes on behind that, they cannot focus on their game. I feel like Senegal is probably a bit more further away from that. So I can see him possibly upsetting and winning the group. But I think, yeah, Netherlands and Senegal. Sparky Parky's back. Sparky Parky says Netherlands and Senegal as well. I think, yeah, kind of have faith in him. But I know what you're saying about Ecuador. Good old Valencia from Fenerbahce plays for
yeah.
them. And I think they can. It's a, what the
The
thing
elder
is?
statesman now.
They would need, yeah, yes, he is. But the dude is still fast and agile as hell, and honestly, like has lungs like crazy. Definitely does not play like an old man. Um, the thing about Ecuador that I can see happening is when they hunker down like that and like close shop, park the bus, and then you have a guy like Valencia as a target man up top, and then
Yeah,
hope that he creates something for you. So they can surprise a team like perhaps like Netherlands or somebody like that by doing that, or Senegal. And like once you get one goal and you kind of like hang on in there for dear life, you don't know what's going to happen. So I like the shout of Ecuador kind of like squeaking in. I just feel like the other two have way too much talent.
yeah.
So with Alan and Sparky already watching, following, let's get to Group B. Well, that's where your boys are. See, I have no
Oh
horse in the
boy.
race. It almost feels it's had better somehow because the Euros, Turkey was in there, so it kind of skewed all my predictions. But England, Iran, USA, and Wales. Where do we
Yeah.
go here?
And this is kind of like the same deal where you immediately want to just throw Iran at the bottom and then let your biases take over, because it's not something where the USA is just completely dead in the water against these other two teams. I just think the other two teams are better, so you kind of have to like talk yourself into it and play some mental gymnastics to get them past either England or Wales. Not to say that there's uh, a huge talent gap between like USA and even Wales, because I think England is the the superior team just on paper
Yeah.
in this group. But I think, and this is something where I was kind of like getting it into it with people uh, about like the strike force and USA. They could probably sit there and like hunker down and like really take a fight to these guys, but are you going to be able to score enough? And there came like the situations where like who are they gonna try to do a false nine? Are they gonna try to go for it with a general three up top? Berhalter, the way he picked his team, he talks about all, like these chemistry things, and I go, but there, if you don't give us any context around any of the things that you're doing, there's no way to kind of like gauge on how you're going to play or what you want to do and why certain guys were picked and why certain guys weren't. Okay, you can. And one guy was trying to tell me, he's like, you don't want to give the strategy away to the teams. I'm like, what? What the fuck are you talking? What are you giving away at this stage of the game? That's just a batshit insane argument to me to begin with. But
Yeah, I mean, we're
there's
not looking for like I mean, here's the thing: you're not going to announce it before the World Cup, but you would think during these friendlies and stuff like that, you would see
you'd
a
figure something
trend
out,
in
yeah.
terms of which way it's going to go. And I mean, I think it was no secret how Liverpool played or
Yeah,
how still they still plays. It's just a matter of execution. If you have like your execution right, it doesn't matter if you know what we're gonna do. We're just gonna do it so well that you're not gonna be able to stop it, kind of a deal. See, Alan says Wales and England. I'm torn on this one because honestly, having seen Wales before in the Euros against Turkey, a more competent defensive line, and Wales was not getting anything out of that game. And eventually, I think Turkey would have scored if you let Ramsey run through while Wales keeps chipping it into him over and over again. Eventually, he's going to finish, which is what happened. So I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with the USA team, to be honest with you. I have not watched them. So I don't know what to expect from there. I'm just going off of what you're saying and Galley's saying and everybody who's not really happy with this team and the lineup and the selection and the coaching. So I think Wales has more experience in that sense as a national team and probably has more confidence as a group because they've done things together. I think that's one big plus they have moving forward. I still think England has just like too much talent out there. Even when they do not play well, somebody is going to convert something for them, and England is going to win the group. Between Wales and USA, I am really torn. So I'm assuming your heart says USA. What does your brain say?
my my brain says whoever scores more against Iran gets through,
Really?
and I think that's going to be Wales because USA plays Iran last, and there's never been a situation while watching the U.S. national team where I'm sitting there going, okay, the U.S. has to come out and score 4 tonight, and then they go do it. If it was something where they were able to, with no pressure, go beat Iran 3-1 in the first game and then make it so Wales in that final game had to go get 3 or 4 goals and really just open themselves up to a possible Iranian counterattack. And that's kind of where if you look at some of those guys, the big league guys, their whole thing is like just getting the ball and kind of Jordan Henderson, like get the ball and then just find a pass and get rid of it immediately. The quicker you can get it out of your own end, the better. Every pass is not going to be perfect, but it's give yourself the best opportunity to make something with some of those guys with pace. I don't think USA in that situation at the end of the group would be able to kind of take advantage of those moments and go get 4 if they needed to, if Wales kind of puts it on Iran earlier.
I think like USA, the way they normally play, and like when I've watched them in the past tournaments and stuff like that, I think they're a team that's designed better to counter against you and not to be the favorites. I think it's just a matter of like being able to counter. So when you play a team like Iran who just sits back and says, "Well, we're not coming," um, so you're not going to be able to counter. I think that does complicate things. Yeah, Sparky says Henderson will make the England team bench warmer. I think for the most part he's there for the leadership. We always talk Trevor about the closer. I can see him maybe coming in that role in some of these games and stuff like that, like the last 25-30 minutes, rest some of the legs in midfield for the next game, kind of a deal, especially if they take the lead early against like an Iran and stuff like that, or maybe like USA. So I don't see him starting, but I can see him getting some minutes. We were talking about Trent with that too. Let me ask you, how much of Trent do you expect to see? Even better, let me ask you this question that I was asking Gally on the podcast yesterday. Out of all the players that are going to the World Cup, who do you think is the most important to get a good World Cup for Liverpool's sake when they come back? If you picked one guy and you're like, I hope he has a good World Cup because we need it.
I think the biggest one's probably Virgil, because Netherlands is a team in that group that's expected to go and sweep, and then with the players that they have to kind of be a force going into the next round, with just that defensive line at least. And if they kind of falter, I think a lot of that blame's going to fall on him, even if it's unfair. And I really think that if he goes out there and kind of imposes his will, and they keep like 3 clean sheets in the group stage, and if they get beat in the knockouts on like some funky play or something, but he plays well, I think that's going to bring confidence back to the league for him. And yeah, that's
a good shot. I never looked at it in that sense. I guess his role in that team is slightly different than some of the other guys who are kind of there. I would think, I don't know if like how much pressure Nunez will have on him. We talked about Trent yesterday as well. To me, it was Trent. Gally went with Nunez, and like his 1A was Trent. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. How much of Trent do you expect to see in this World Cup?
And that's why I don't think, and that's why I don't pick Trent, because I don't think Southgate is going to give him that much of an opportunity. Whether it's just trying to prove that he's right at this point, because
it's almost spite at this point.
Yeah, it's pure pettiness from Southgate at this point. The fact that he's on the roster at all, I think, is because they have so many big injuries to right backs that I think if he had his druthers, he'd pick over Trent. I don't know what this weird vendetta is between them. Hopefully, a little bit further down the road, probably when Southgate gets canned, more than likely after this tournament, if they don't go to the semis at least, they'll just be something out there where you can kind of like get some sort of just a morsel of information of why it can't, because it just can't be like a talent thing. He can't sit there in his heart of hearts, even despite the season that he's having and the way Newcastle's playing, and go that Kieran Trippier is head and shoulders above Trent Alexander-Arnold. He can be your preferred player, but to sit there and go from like a talent standpoint and go, oh, this guy is just worlds above him. It's not. It just doesn't make any sense. And as Sparky's saying, yes, Trent is weak in defense, and Southgate likes to defend, but also your huge deficiency is getting the ball to Harry Kane, and that's why all the goals that you score are late, because you put nobody dynamic on the field into the final 20 fucking minutes, and then just let them run wild, and you play 70 minutes of boring dog shit football, and you realize why everybody's calling for your head.
I
Oh,
think it's almost like, yeah,
maybe you switch it up a bit.
yeah, we'll defend, and then I mean,
Yeah,
these guys are all good. Somebody will do something. I think it's almost
yeah,
like that's how they play, and then like eventually something will happen. Sterling will run by somebody or something, or Kane will
yeah.
pressure and win the ball or something like that. I think yeah, that's like the mindset they almost like hit the field with until he has to go back to plan B, and like you're saying, he puts some people who can actually affect the game, make some passes, create some stuff, and then you bring out the real talents in the team. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good squad overall when you look at the players involved. And yeah, it's a good combination to have Trent with Kane in the middle and what he can deliver to Kane. But yeah, Sparky says boring Southgate, he bores you into defeat. And that's the thing. I think it's like one of those cases where the team is going, we could, put Stitch up there or like Leo out there as the coach, and with that squad, they're going to win some games. Doesn't matter what the guy on the sideline is saying or doing. You can just like he can pick the lineup with a paw and throw them out there. And there's so much quality out there that something will happen. But I don't know. You have some coaches who kind of take their squad and add and make them better by combining them, and you have some that are there kind of for the ride. And I see Southgate is just there for the ride. I mean, I can't see when they were like talking about, oh, he'll be like, who would get if Southgate leaves England, who, what team, what national team, what club team would be like, we got to bring Southgate in? Like, who's going to say that? What kind of a situation do you have to be in to say we need Southgate?
Uh, a team that's leaking goals in the championship, and you want to bring in a guy that will
Park the bus.
just yeah, steady the ship. I'm trying to put a little more positive language into it. What you're saying is correct, but
Oh,
that's
Rex,
news.
there you go. Yeah, just add
Yeah,
to the. They're doing really
uh,
well, I guess. I would just look that
I
up
don't
the other day.
know.
Obviously, I don't follow them as much aside from the
Well,
show.
I don't think American owners would want a guy that his preferred scoreline is 1-0.
Yeah.
They seem to like their 4-3 games down there. So we'll probably keep them away from him. But like, yeah, it would just be one of those weird teams that are just like giving up a ton of goals, and they feel like he's their only option, and he's a name that they can like sell to the fans, even though yeah, it's weird.
So this is a
Huh.
good story to finish with, because I did see it's like it literally showed up on the thing now when it refreshed.
Yeah.
So Carvalho quits playing for Portugal's under 21s. And it says like over here it says by text. Yeah, I saw like SMS messaging, which I don't even understand how that works. Like can't make it or like not
Hmm.
playing anymore with you guys. I found a new team. I don't know how that works, but
I'm done. LOL.
so they announced that 50 words. I didn't see the statement at all, but so I guess like the hope now is he can kind of switch back to England. What do you make of Carvalho so far? It's a short sampling size, and I think he has been put into a situation where we were not playing all that well anyway. But how do you see him so far, his performance, what he does, and how do you project the future for him?
And a lot of people that kind of like call him like Baby Coutinho, Bobby Light. It's one of those, and I've been one of them. I shouldn't talk in like the third
I was
person.
gonna say, wait, what?
Yeah, yeah, but I don't know, a little out of body experience
People
there
like
for a second.
me.
Yeah, random people like myself, and it's one of those things where I've and we've talked about it. I think him out on the wing is wasteful, but it's just you need bodies, and he can run, and he can do those things, but it doesn't utilize the best of his talents, which is passing and interconnectivity, where he can really thread those gaps the way that Bobby would do, and he can make those looping passes over the top in like tight spots that Coutinho could do when he was here. It's it's something that I think over time, and when there's kind of roster shifts and kind of get rid of some of the deadwood next year and guys get healthy, I think he will kind of be moved into a spot where he's better suited. But I just think for this year, it's kind of almost just a wash because yeah, when Diaz and Jota go down, and he doesn't want to play your boy Ox in anything other than like cup games, there's nobody left to go over there, and that's why I think Nunez has been playing over there all the time because it's just like, all right, Carvalho doesn't seem to work here, so let's go Nunez over there and
Yeah, I think
try
the
to make that
wing.
work.
I think like strength wise, first of all, it's not. He's agile, not necessarily fast. I mean, like he's not like a sprint speed guy. He's more like quick instead of
Oh, yeah,
fast. So I
he's a
think as
Portuguese midfielder.
yes, I think that's the thing. So like him on the wing, I think was like setting him up to fail. I was one of those guys like you, who kind of like saw him as somebody who can do. Because I mean, he is a unicorn. We have not been able to kind of like duplicate what he does, Bobby. And this was kind of like my hope of okay, like it's a young Bobby learning from Bobby how to be Bobby kind of a
Yeah,
deal. And but then as you watch him, you do get a hint of Coutinho thrown in
yeah,
there,
it's little
and
spritz.
that's somehow in good ways and bad ways because you also see him like lose the ball in bad situations like Coutinho did when
Yeah.
he was there, like trying to almost force create something. And I get the sense that with Carvalho, like that I don't get with Elliott, that when he's out there, I almost see Carvalho almost pushing the issue to create something, to make something happen, to kind of distinguish himself, to show that he has an impact. Whereas when Elliott is out there, I think he's a bit more confidence, maybe because he's had more playing time and he's had already success with the first team. He plays
Yeah.
within the game, and when he does something well, it's within the gameplay. He's not like saying, okay, let me take this ball now and make something happen. Whereas you kind of see that with Carvalho, and maybe like you're saying, once people come back from injuries and he's coming in for these, 20-minute, 25-minute stints or in the cup games, he won't get that feeling as much because I feel like he
Yeah.
struggles with that. And obviously, physically, he has to get stronger because Bobby is a really strong dude on the ball. I mean, you can, like how he can protect the ball, how he wins the ball, how he can shoulder people off. He doesn't look it, but he's like a strong dude overall, and you don't get that with Carvalho. But yeah, that's interesting that he would. I mean, that Portugal team too, man. It's like you look at that squad. Jesus Christ, they have some talent. Where the hell are they like getting these guys out of kind of a deal? But so I don't know. Maybe he looks and says, "Hey, with my creativity, it's a lot easier to get a spot in England." I always question how these guys pick national teams. I mean, we had, and he's a great player, by the way, and I can see him playing in Europe in the future. Like Fenerbahce has this kid, Ferdi Kadıoğlu. I mean, he used to be a midfielder winger. Now he plays like wing back and stuff like that. Really good. And he could have been Dutch or he could have been Turkish. And guess what? He went Turkish because he probably figured he's a guarantee to start for Turkey right now, not as much for Netherlands. So I kind of like question how these guys finally pick the countries in
Yeah.
terms of like how they commit and stuff like that. But so will we hear more, you think, as we wrap it up for today? Will we hear more Ronaldo news tomorrow so you can be excited to get up in the
Oh,
morning and talk Ronaldo?
it doesn't end.
It will
He
not end. You're right.
Yeah, he is the gonorrhea of football headlines, and we refuse to go to the doctor.
But we'll continue our groups tomorrow, continue with the predictions. And like I say, that link should be out. Keep an eye on the Facebook page. That link should be out hopefully sometime later today so you can enter in your predictions as well. And then we'll be back tomorrow morning. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody. Take care.